I am a Cuban man, and I would like to be more like America. What? That's what we're saying.
Why did you start it like that?
That's how you said we were going to start the skit.
Oh, I am a Black Lives Matter activist. Don't you follow Black Lives Matter on Instagram? Don't you know that America sucks and we put the oppressiveness on Cuba? We're ruining it for you. Why would you want to come here?
I want to be more like America. America is the greatest country ever. That's why in my protests, I held an American flag.
Well, I am Nikole-Hannah Jones.
Are you?
Author of the 1619 Project, and I'm crying because Cuba is because Cuba has the most racial equality of any country in the world, and America has none. So why would you want to come to America?
Because that doesn't mean anything. All of our races in Cuba are equally poor. So yes, maybe they are equally not like America. They're all equally poor.
And scene. Very good point.
Oh my God.
I blame Taylor for this.
I do.
Me?
Yes,
after Will's opening? That was
My
the worst
opening was
opening
fine.
ever. We all lost it after his first line.
We
Well,
really
maybe you
did.
guys should learn how to not break character, okay?
I
You live in Los Angeles. There's plenty of
You
acting
never
schools.
started a character to begin with. You just said, I am a Cuban.
That's my character.
Anyways.
This is terrible.
So I don't even know. We did the opening. I'm going to lead you into our first story here. Of course, it is related to the opening. And it is because Black Lives Matter yesterday released a statement on the Cuba crisis. And, you know, they took the exact stance that you would expect from Black Lives Matter. I'm going to show you this tweet here. Andy No posted this. Black Lives Matter writes, the people of Cuba are being punished by the U.S. government because the country has maintained its commitment to sovereignty and self-determination. United States leaders have tried to crush this revolution for decades. Instead of international amity, respect, and goodwill, the U.S. government has only instigated suffering for the country's 11 million people, of which 4 million are black and brown. No clue as to why they felt the need to make that distinction. It goes on and they
now
write...
we know why you say of which so much. You were a former BLM activist.
I know.
And it's their language.
It is their language, and I, you know, there's still a little bit of left in me, I guess.
I guess so.
There's a little bit of which black still left in you.
I'm going to continue reading here. Cuba has historically demonstrated solidarity with oppressed peoples of African descent, from protecting black revolutionaries like Assata Shakur through granting her asylum, to supporting black liberation struggles in Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, and South Africa. Now, they also go on to blame the United States for putting a trade embargo on Cuba as a country, and they say that this has economically crippled and destabilized this country and undermined the rights of Cuban to choose their own government, and it is at the heart of Cuba's current crisis.
There should be a pretty big wake-up call for anyone who knows anything about history, that you realize that Black Lives Matter knows nothing about history. And I get it a lot of the time from people saying, you know, a lot of these leftists have good intentions. They want to come and they really want to help people. They care about people. That's why they're doing this. But you can't read a statement like this, knowing history of Cuba and the world in general, and think that these people have good intentions in their hearts, that they actually want to help people. Because you can't sincerely say that they want to help people when they're blaming America for these problems. I mean, it's comical that on that tweet, their Black Lives Matter, their profile picture is rainbow colors, probably a pride thing,
Right.
which they support all the pride stuff, not knowing. I mean, they probably know, but they're just not saying anything about it. I mean, Che Guevara killed gay people all across South America. Fidel Castro imprisoning gay people. I mean, that's just even one point. And then all the other dissidents being imprisoned and all of the horrible things that happened to them because they wanted freedom. That happened in a communist place. And it's like one thing to look, and they say that, you know, it's America's fault, it's America's fault. Look in like 1980, you can look at a world map and look at the amount of countries around the world that had communist states. And now you look at the map where communist states are still active, and it's like none of them, except for really China, are present anymore. The communist states from the 1900s have failed. Communism doesn't work. And it's killed millions of people. It's killed millions of people across the world. And Black Lives Matter not realizing this history, or realizing it and not saying anything about it, is insidious. And I don't think they have anyone's best interest in mind at all.
Right. Some people would say, oh, somebody actually put in the comments here, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. There's no good intentions here. The Black Lives Matter would rather sit on their high horse and attack America and degrade America rather than admit that the communist system that they are so fond of in their writing is wrong and it does not work. And the people in Cuba are not starving because of America's trade embargo. That is simply not the case. They are starving because their government controls their resources and distributes them in a way in which they can't get food and they can't eat. And we've shown videos on this program, actually one in particular, of a man coming to America, a Cuban man coming to America and going into a grocery store for the first time and seeing the abundance of food. Not only the abundance of food, but the different choices that we have. And that is not something that exists in Cuba. Right now, if you're going to a Cuban grocery store, it is either empty or it has single options for each of the products, single brands for each of the products. And when you do end up getting your food, you're waiting in line for hours and hours to pay for it and take it home to your family. This has nothing to do with a trade embargo placed on Cuba by the United States.
Look, America, I mean, putting America first, we realize that a lot of these things that are happening in Cuba could be happening in America, especially if we have an organization like Black Lives Matter leading the charge. You can go on Black Lives Matter Instagram page, probably see the comments that are on a post like this, and people are saying, yes, Queen, so happy about what you're doing. Thank you so much for posting this. It's like you are raising a generation of entitled losers who think that America is the root of the problems of all these other countries. Do they realize that without America, without American imperialism, the rest of the world would probably be at war right now? Okay? World War III probably would have happened if it wasn't for America, especially our massive Navy patrolling the seas and keeping people safe, keeping other countries knowing that they have us to protect them. I mean, without America, the rest of the world would be a terrible, dark place. I have no qualms with saying that. Everyone wants to say America's this horrible place and imperialism and all this. I have no problem coming out and saying that America is the bodyguard of the world. Yes, a lot of things are stupid. Again, talk about defense contractors getting money to go out to places, whatever. But regardless of all of that, America is the defense keepers of the world. And these people coming on and claiming that they're not, or saying that America is the reason for this, is wild, especially because America doesn't need to do that in a lot of ways. America exports, the amount of exports that America has, I mean, it's wild. We don't even need any other countries, really, because we make everything ourselves, especially with fracking. We are essentially energy independent from like places like the Middle East. We don't need other countries. It's America first. Like, we don't need other countries for any of the stuff that we do. To say that this is our fault it's just wildly.
It's asinine.
Yeah, it's stupid. Super dumb.
It's amazing that you can have so much cognitive dissonance as to blame America for the current crisis that is happening in Cuba, when time and time again you have Cubans standing in the streets with American flags, waving them as they are protesting in the streets, saying that we wish our country was more like America. We wish we were granted the freedoms that Americans have. And that is why people try so hard to get into this country, because other countries do not have the freedoms and the rights and the liberty that we have. And that is what they are striving for in Cuba. So for Black Lives Matter to put out a statement blaming America for this crisis, beyond me.
Why are they asking a capitalist country for help? I thought they hated capitalism. Right. And they're coming and asking America, a capitalist country, to help with their socialism. So stupid.
Yeah, you have to be pre-committed in your mind to hating America, to look at suffering caused by communism and attribute that to America. Like, how backwards can you get to look at suffering and people crying out for freedom, and you're like, oh, America's depriving you of freedom? Like, no, America's the only beacon of freedom that the world really has, and the suffering that these people are experiencing is caused by the ideas that you believe in. But like, it's such a dishonest sleight of hand to be like, oh yeah, it's actually America that's causing the very thing that my bad ideas are resulting in. And you see that with the same logic applied to, like, the left will try to blame the squalor and this that's happening in like the unlivable cities of the blue cities around the country. They'll find ways to blame it on the right, or blame it on people who believe in the founding ideas and believe in personal responsibility and stuff like that. And it's just super backwards.
These are the same types of people. If Black Lives Matter was around in 1963, they would have been siding with the Soviets in the Cold War. It is abundantly clear that they do not like America. They would rather side with communists who starved their population, sent them to gulags, than side with America. It is abundantly, if the Bay of Pigs invasion was happening now, I mean, they would be saying that, oh, well, they had to put nukes there because they're so racially sensitive to black people. It's like, it's so dumb. You have to be so out of touch with reality to believe this from Black Lives Matter. Completely out of touch.
And it shows that their one and only pursuit is sticking to phrases and words that they put together in their toolkits and what they campaign for and they scream on the streets. Their pursuit is not truth. Their pursuit is not helping people. If their pursuit was truth and helping others, they would admit that communism is a horrible, horrible system and that the Cubans right now are living under a dictatorship that is stripping them of all the privileges of which they should have living in their country. And they will not admit that because it doesn't go with the message that they've put out so far. And they don't want to say that they're wrong. So much so that Nikole-Hannah Jones, and you guys know her and dislike her because she is the author of the 1619 Project, which purports that America's true founding was in 1619 when the first slave ship came over to the United States, well, which wasn't the United States at the time. But Nikole-Hannah Jones has written and spoke about Cuba, and I want to read you some of her quotes here. She says, Cuba has the least inequality between black and white people of any place really in the hemisphere. I mean the Caribbean, most of the Caribbean. It's hard to count because the white population in a lot of these countries is very, very small. These countries are run by black folks, but in places that are truly at least biracial countries, Cuba actually has the least inequality. And that is largely due to socialism, which I'm sure no one wants to hear.
No, it is. She's exactly right. It is due to socialism. All white, black, and brown people are equally poor in that country.
Right.
So she's exactly right. Thank you, socialism, for showing us how equal you can really make everybody.
Right. It's very, very hard to focus on the differences between races and white privilege and black suppression when your children are starving and you have to wait 2 hours in line to get food.
Yeah, they equally have no rights because their government intentionally deprives them of rights rather than protects their rights like ours does.
Yeah. Would you rather have a system where everyone is equally horrible or a system where some benefit and some are a little bit worse off because of their own personal freedom, their own personal choices? It seems like an obvious decision. Would you rather have everyone be equally terrible or some people better than others at a higher standard?
And that's why when you hear the phrasing behind CRT and Nikole-Hannah Jones's work and all of these activists and social justice warriors, you will hear the word equity, which means equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. And what they want is for everybody to be equally poor, everybody to be equally starving, everybody to be equally depressed and oppressed by their governance. And that just to be able to say we're all equal, just to be able to say, oh, we're not focused on systemic racism right now because we're all down in the abyss of communism and socialism in this country.
Yeah. You cannot achieve equity also without tyranny.
Exactly.
You have to, in order to make it a truly equitable or equal, quote unquote, society, you have to hold down and hold back people from achieving or destroy the incentives that would make certain people stand out and make something of themselves. And that's basically what they do.
Cuba, get your crap together. Don't blame it on us for your stupid policies and your stupid way that you've decided to have your country.
And funny enough, it's not even Cuba blaming us, it's Americans, which blows my mind.
But the elites in Cuba.
Yeah.
The elites in Cuba.
Well,
right.
Cuba's not the only country that is going through strife right now. If you've been on the internet watching the news at all, you've been seeing reports out of South Africa, very harrowing reports of people out in the streets rioting, looting, and subsequently being killed or killing others. I believe the death toll right now, or as of this morning, was 117 South Africans. And we got to interview a South African PragerFORCE member about the situation to give you guys and us a little more context on what's happening. So here's that interview. Okay, so on today's program, we have an 18-year-old PragerFORCE member from South Africa by the name of Robin du Plessis, and she's going to be talking about what is happening in South Africa, get you guys educated, and give you guys the fundamentals. So, Robin, first and foremost, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is great. So can you let everybody know just a brief synopsis of really why the turmoil is happening right now in South Africa?
Okay, so basically what happened is our ex-president Jacob Zuma stole 1 year's worth of state income in 4 years. And then he was asked to resign his position as president. And then he failed to show up to court twice. And then he was arrested for contempt of court and sentenced to 15 months in prison, which has upset a lot of people because they feel like his arrest is unjust since he has been arrested without trial, which is super ironic. But yeah, now people are looting and rioting stores and burning places to the ground.
But this past president, I mean, Jacob Zuma, he was not a great guy. He was corrupt. He bankrupted the country in many ways, sent the economy downwards. Why are there so many people who are out there defending him and saying, this guy's great, this guy's great? Why do they not wake up to what's going on in their country?
I feel like it's a pretty unfortunate situation because people don't really have the means and access to informing themselves on these topics. I mean, we have a very high unemployment rate. Poverty is a massive problem here. And I just think that these people are holding on to the promises that they've been made for 30 years now, that promising that life will get better and then they will get some kind of government aid. And it hasn't happened yet. But I think that people aren't educated enough and informed enough to really understand that these are empty promises and they won't actually get anything out of supporting him, but they do it anyway. And then on the other side, I feel like there are a lot of opportunistic people who just take this opportunity to burn places to the ground because they're upset with the institution.
Right. Now, what I immediately think of when I hear you give that explanation is the BLM riots of past summer after George Floyd was killed in a police encounter. So people went out in the streets, they rioted, they looted, they burned things down to the ground, and they wanted all these promises to be fulfilled by the U.S. government. And subsequently, people died because of that. Here in America, I believe it was 24 people who died during the Black Lives Matter riots of last year. It looks like in South Africa, it's getting much worse at this stage, where I believe the current death toll is about 117 South Africans. Now, do you just see that as people using the economic depression and their inner turmoil as an excuse to go out and riot and loot and burn? Because that's what we see here with Black Lives Matter. Is that the same thing happening in South Africa?
I definitely think the case in South Africa is quite similar, yes. I mean, we've had a lot of problems in our country. I mean, no country is perfect, but I feel like there's just this mindset that people have over here that, things aren't getting better. And the only way to get it to be better is to burn down everything and try and build it up from the ground. But I mean, we don't really have the resources to do that. We can't improve what we have already. So how will we be able to build it up from nothing? And I mean, the pandemic definitely didn't help. People just got the opportunity to open up their businesses again after strict lockdowns. But as soon as they opened their doors on Monday, they were burned to the ground. Only a carcass is left of that person's livelihood, a lot of people's livelihood. And it's really just a sad and depressing thing to see.
And you're seeing a lot of this stuff, at least it seems like in South Africa, is caused by race. I mean, the current president that you guys have now is an anti-white racist and pushing all of these things that are pretty much anti-white. What do you see as the future of South Africa when it comes to race relations? Do you think things are getting worse, or because of this stuff happening now, it's getting better? What are your take on that?
I think it's a really hard thing to really predict because we are so caught up in our past. I feel like that is something that we as South Africans really need to get over. I mean, it's almost been 30 years since we've become a democracy, but somehow we still blame our past and apartheid for the problems that we see today. And I really think it's time that we are taking responsibility for our current problems instead of just blaming things that are way out of our control now, is out of our hands. This can't be happening still due to laws that were implemented 30, 40 years ago. And for me as well, I mean, I don't even know what it's like to not live in democratic South Africa. I've known the free country, or so-called free country, since I was born, but I still get people that tell me that I am really, I lost the words there. Sorry.
No problem.
I'm still told by people that I benefit from apartheid and the laws there, and that the color of my skin somehow really has an influence on my privilege as a person. And I really don't think that is true, because we live in a country that is free. We actually have really good laws. We have a really good constitution. We have really good economic policies. But the problem is that corruption really makes it hard to enforce those policies and actually grow as a country. And I think that we have to change our mindset when it comes to our country, and especially race, because it's just something that we are still, for some reason, really hung up on, and we just can't seem to move past it. And if we get to that point, then we will be able to really prosper as a country.
Sounds a lot like America.
It does.
Wow, just like the country that I live in. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's an important distinction or a comparison to make, because a lot of Americans are going to see what's happening in South Africa and not care, or just think that it is beneath them or removed from them. And to hear what you're saying and to really hone in on how similar it is to what's happening right now in our country is a harrowing thing to even think about. Now, I do want to go through some news footage here and get not only your first take on it, but show the people at home watching this what is really happening in South Africa. Here we go.
Good morning. South Africa is on its knees after days of violence, but so far security forces have been slow to bring the unrest under control. Hordes of looters stormed hundreds of retail stores in South Africa, grabbing anything they could get their hands on. Outnumbered and overwhelmed, police struggled to contain the violence. Police fire rubber bullets, tear gas, but the looters are undeterred. There's not one shop here that hasn't been attacked and completely ransacked. Dozens are dead. This man was injured in the mayhem. Nobody stopped to help him. And in one heart-stopping moment, this toddler was rescued from a building set ablaze by rioters. The violence was triggered by the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma for refusing to appear before a commission investigating corruption during his 9-year tenure. His supporters took to the streets, but it has now boiled over into anarchic rage, fueled by persistent poverty that's been exacerbated by a deadly third wave of the COVID pandemic.
It's a sad thing to watch. It is a very, very sad thing to watch. How does it feel that your country is in this state currently?
I mean, it's depressing, and it's hard to be optimistic. And the saddest part about this is that the communities that are affected the most by these are the poorest communities in our country, and the people that really don't have much and really only have a loaf of bread a week and stuff like that to get by. And their grocery stores are being burned down. Their only source of nourishment, the only place that they can get that, is being burned down. And it's really a sad sight. And I mean, it's just scary to think how quickly this happened. I mean, one day everything was fine, and the next day we heard about just our country being in flames and multiple malls, like the whole mall would just be burned to the ground.
It seems a lot like it's almost like state-sanctioned anarchy, where the government and the police force, I know there are some news footage and things of them trying to help and trying to get things done, but it seems in a lot of ways the government, National Guard, the police force are incredibly corrupt. I mean, we're seeing videos out of South Africa of police officers going and looting stores themselves as police officers. I mean, what are you seeing? Is my assumption correct with all that?
Yes, there have been videos, and it's really, I mean, we all know in South Africa here, our police force is notoriously untrustworthy, and it's really a sad thing to admit that we can't trust the people who are there to protect us. And for me, it's just such a sad sight, because these people are on shift. They're not even posing as civilians. They're in uniform on shift, looting and rioting, putting the things in the cop cars. I mean, they're basically being paid to loot. And it's just a terrible sight, because how do we get back from this? How can we stop this from happening when the people whose job it is to stop this are taking part in it?
That's definitely true. What is your message to Americans right now watching who feel disconnected from South Africa, who say, you know, this is so far away, this doesn't affect me at all? What is your message to stupid entitled Americans who don't know about what's going on across the world?
Well, first of all, I would like to start by saying that was a lot of South Africans' view when Black Lives Matter protests started last year. We were all like, yeah, but that's so far away. That won't happen to us. Those people are just setting places on fire. We don't have that here. And I mean, here we are. And we've seen, I think, over 100 million rand worth of damage in 4 days. It's just crazy. And I just think that we don't have the means really to help ourselves, because a lot of people, we have a lot of places that don't have running water. Everyone has load shedding where we don't have power, electricity for certain times of day. And I feel like when I see personally Americans being upset about the circumstances that they live in, it's just, to me, really hard to see, because I mean, you live in such a free country, such a good country. You're so privileged. You have so many resources just at your disposal. You actually have trustworthy institutions, cops that you can rely on. And I feel like it's really easy to lose perspective. And I feel like I might be a bit pessimistic as well, because it is hard to be optimistic when you walk into a grocery store and there isn't any food there because all the distribution lines have been cut, and see that how gas stations are closed because there isn't any gas anymore. But I feel like there's so much that you have to be thankful for, and so much that you just have that, you know, it doesn't seem like much, but there are always people that are suffering. And it's just, I think in a way, really rude to take what you have and say that it's so little when there's people who would do anything to have what you have.
It is rude. Think about that, leftists in the chat.
Right.
You're
Look at
being
this.
rude.
Look at this young woman. Robin, you are experiencing something outside of the scope of what anybody your age should have to experience and be put through. And at the age of 18, you are here articulating socio-political issues that are happening in your country to people who don't understand them. It's an insane thing to be doing at your age. And what I hope is at least some sort of comfort for you is that you are able to do this, and that you built a community through PragerFORCE. Can you explain to everybody listening how you got to be a member of PragerFORCE and what that's been like for you?
Well, last year during the rioting in America, I started getting into videos and just online because I wanted to educate myself on this, because I feel like it's so hard to just see one person's perspective and narrative. And I came across PragerU and PragerFORCE, and I decided to join, and it's really been an eye-opening experience, because I mean, we don't really have the opportunity to see a lot of different perspectives. I feel like we live in a day and age where we have access to so much information, but we don't really use it properly. We tend to get sucked into a certain narrative. We tend to form opinions that based on facts that, you know, we didn't really read, or we think that our facts are just based on some type of accusation someone made. And PragerFORCE really helped me to open up my eyes to different problems all across the world and see how there are similar things happening all over the world, but also just see different people's perspective, because it's always easy to look in from the outside and say, well, that's wrong, I would have handled it this way, oh, this is how it's supposed to go. But when you're in that situation, it's a lot different. And I think that PragerFORCE definitely helped me with that, and in a sense prepared me for what's happening here in South Africa, because I've talked to people who have experienced similar things in the US last year, and now I can feel a bit more comforted to know that this isn't a unique situation, as sad as that might be, because I don't wish this upon anyone. But it's just nice to know that people also experience things that you do, or have opinions, and just have different perspectives, and really open up your eyes.
Well, God bless you, and God bless the people of South Africa. And if you join PragerFORCE, you can talk to great people in South Africa. That's a perk. Okay, you're welcome. PragerFORCE.com. Join it. Students, young professionals across the world. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this, Robin. We really appreciate it.
We really do.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, that was Robin's story. What an awesome girl. What a cool thing to get to experience and have the opportunity to speak to somebody like that.
No, she was incredibly cool. She was awesome. So it's funny. We had to do that interview 3 times in a row.
3.
Because intern Tyler screwed everything up. Dang it, no.
Tyler.
Dang
We
it.
won't blame Tyler.
No, it wasn't Tyler's fault. It was China's fault, probably. I don't know.
It probably or South Africa's fault. They didn't want her talking about what's going on in their country.
They don't want us talking about the blood diamonds.
Yeah, so that was her third take of that. So kudos to her for being a good player and just doing it over and over for us because we asked her the same questions 3 times.
Yeah, that was super nice. But it was good because at the third time she was the best doing it.
Yeah.
But there's like a lot of problems with Africa that people don't understand, especially in South Africa, that people aren't hearing about. Like farmers are 3 times more likely to be killed than a police officer. There is so much anti-white violence happening in South Africa. It's insane. And the overpopulation happening in Africa, where overpopulation, Malthusianism is all a myth, okay? Don't believe the hype. But in a place like Africa where they don't have the resources or stability, and you have a place like Nigeria in Lagos, which is going to have a population of 30 million people by the year 2050, which is insane in one city. And the city already doesn't have the infrastructure to hold the people that it has now, and they're just having tons and tons of kids, tons and tons of babies. What do you do when that happens and you have all these people being displaced? You're going to have insane political revolution. Then you have places like Ethiopia, which are building this big dam and basically saying, screw you, Egypt, we're going to take all the water from the Nile and you're not going to Guinea for Sudan and Ethiopia, which is going to cause a huge humanitarian crisis, the biggest refugee crisis ever in Egypt by probably about 2030. This is me speculating. I don't know that for sure, but I would suspect that that's what's going to happen. So there's a lot of stuff happening in Africa that is pretty terrible that people don't realize. And hopefully that people start looking into what's happening in that continent, because it could either be the biggest world superpower or it could be something that is a travesty for the entire world of what is happening there. So,
from the amount of land being bought up from other countries in Africa, I doubt it's going to become its own superpower. It'll probably become somebody else's superpower, like China's.
Potentially.
I would imagine.
Yeah.
The race for Africa never stopped, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of those places like Ethiopia and Sudan would side with China. If we had a World War III, they would side with China. They'd side with the communists. But we'd have Egypt, we'd have Anubis and Ra on our side.
Yeah, we absolutely would. Now, while that interview was playing, we actually got a little notification on our phones that LA County is going back to mask mandating indoors. So that's a little bit of breaking news for all of you who are watching. If any of you guys are in Los Angeles, welcome back to the mask mandate.
All I gotta say is,
I don't like it.
I don't care.
I won't be participating.
I am going to say this right now. Gavin Newsom, if you're watching, this is for you. Or Eric Garcetti, more likely in LA. I am not participating in your delusions. I will not cater to your delusional mind telling me that I have to do that. I am going to freely go into every place that I want and continue to not have a mask on.
As you should, and if enough people do it, we'll be fine. We just need other people to do it as well.
Stop wearing it.
It doesn't help to be the one person doing it.
Yeah, I can't do it all by myself.
Although he would if he could.
I would. Someone's got to do it. But we can all do it. You can all do your part.
Yeah. So don't let people tell you whether or not you can go somewhere or live your daily life without wearing a mask. It doesn't make any sense, and it's ridiculous. So that's a little bit of breaking news. Now moving on to our next story of the day, and that is one to celebrate a celebrity for once. Celebrate somebody in Hollywood, and that is Ashton Kutcher. We rarely celebrate people in Hollywood because we know it is corrupt, perverted, disgusting these days.
Is Ashton Kutcher going to come through the door and say, punked?
I wish. Well, I don't know if he's punking me here, but I wish Ashton Kutcher would walk through the door. I'd have a lot to say to this man. But he has come out and did a little interview, and in a small segment of that interview, he talked about TikTok and the possibility of China using this app for nefarious reasons. So I'm going to show you the clip here, and then we'll discuss it.
My guess is social media is going to be very different by that point in time.
How do you think it'll be different?
Well, I look at TikTok right now, which is probably the fastest growing social media platform. And I see a massive regulatory battle on the horizon for a company like TikTok that is powered by ByteDance, which is one of the most powerful AI engines in the world in China.
Yeah.
And I think about if I'm China and I want to create a problem in that area of the world, specifically a naval problem in that area of the world, in the South China Sea, I would probably want to utilize TikTok in order to influence the minds of Americans in a anti-U.S. propaganda, anti-Taiwanese propaganda effort in order to make any kind of war from the United States extraordinarily unpopular in order to defend the South China Sea.
Yeah, there's all sorts of ways they can manipulate our media and what our people think.
Yeah, so that's the clip. Pretty interesting. Isn't it nice to hear somebody say that specifically toward China?
Well, he could have said that in about 10 seconds, but with all the it took a little bit
Let's not
longer.
criticize the way he...
But I have to bring that up because is he having all those stumbles because he's not very articulate? I've heard him speak before. He seems to be a pretty articulate guy.
No, he's extremely articulate.
Or is he not?
He knows he's going out on a limb by saying
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. He's worried. He's choosing his words very, very carefully by saying it. And the thing about Taiwan as well, like he's very careful about what he is saying.
Right. It's a faux pas under, I mean, Chinese rule to even recognize Taiwan as its own country. So
yeah.
Well, yeah. This is very refreshing though, in contrast to John Cena speaking Chinese and groveling and apologizing for referring to Taiwan as a country. To appease the CCP. So, I'll take a stumbling, condemnation of it over that groveling stuff. So it is refreshing. We'll take it.
No, big kudos. And for anybody who's been following Ashton Kutcher, this should not really be surprising news to you. He's been working in computer software. He's been working in engineering. He's been working in stocks. He's also been working to fight human trafficking and child pornography on the internet for years now. And he has a foundation that does that. So to hear this news and to actually see it be popularized, how based he actually is, and to have it actually bring up a conversation about the influence of China and how they are utilizing TikTok it's a very important conversation to have, because TikTok is the breeding ground of anti-American rhetoric, of grooming, of just any single social issue that you can think of right now that is occurring in America. There is a ripe spot on that platform.
Ripe.
Ready.
A ripe spot.
A ripe spot on that platform.
It is truly an insidious but masterful plan by China to do this to us through our social media apps. It makes perfect sense. If they want to tear down America, they tear it down from the inside. That way they can be able to do whatever they like. Mm-hmm. I mean, China in a lot of ways right now is incredibly dependent on other parts of the world. It's dependent for oil from the Middle East. It's dependent for its naval trade routes. If America is put into a place where they can no longer defend the rest of the world, kind of like what I talked about earlier in the show, where people don't want to actually go out on a limb to defend the rest of the world, then you're going to have China taking over large sections of land and totally putting them under its influence, starting with probably India. You have Vietnam. You have other places across going towards the Middle East. So there are a lot of repercussions that come with giving China all this power, and I don't think people realize it at all. People have no idea what would actually happen.
And they are constantly funding these sort of campaigns here in our country while doing the exact opposite in their country. Look at the masculinization of women, the feminization of men, the pro-abortion movement, the anti-police movement, the anti-military movement. And if you are unaware of the fact that China is behind a lot of this stuff in the U.S., here's your wake-up call, because they are. And at the very same time that we sit here and we argue about it and the left gets more and more extreme and we push towards demilitarization and anti-policing and making our men super feminine to where they can't even defend this country, China is doing the exact opposite.
Yeah, and it's not going to be some overt thing where you have some Chinese guy in military garb coming and saying, America is terrible. I wouldn't do a Chinese accent because they would be, I know you guys would be upset with me, but I can do a good Chinese accent. But it's not going to be something overt like that where it's shown to you right in the face. It's going to be subvert. It's going to be things like, oh, maybe men should be a little more feminine, or men don't need to serve in the military. All these different things, or like you should be drinking and smoking weed and doing all these things that are going to destroy you and make you a weak society and eating fast food. Like, these are the way that they subvert your mind into thinking that you don't really have any other sort of aims in your life.
China is reveling in our instability as a country, and they are fueling our instability as a country. And you should always question when China is involved in any of the dealings that our politicians and bureaucrats are doing, because that their only interest is the overtaking of America. They don't like us.
And I think China, in my opinion, is going to do something sooner rather than later, because China, notoriously, along with Russia as well, have very old populations because so many young people died in their country. So they have when you have these huge populations of people, a lot of them are a lot of old people. And so it kind of means that they need to get a move on making some sort of move, or it's going to be too late for them to actually do something to cement themselves as that huge world power. So I see something happening pretty soon in the horizon from China. I think their propaganda machine through TikTok and other means has done fantastic work in our country of making us hate this country and hate ourselves as well. So I see something happening soon in the next 10, 15 years. I
agree. It's an unfortunate thing, but kudos to Ashton Kutcher for being a celebrity who is, an A-list celebrity in the hot seat of the media and the press and talking about China and the influence that is having. Now, another story, and I believe this is our final story of the day, is American Booksellers Association. They put out a statement on Twitter that has gone somewhat viral because they accidentally featured an anti-trans book within their July mailing list. So here is their response and their apology to the people who patronize their business. An anti-trans book was included in our June mailing to members. This is a serious, violent incident that goes against ABA's ends policies, values, and everything we believe and support. It is inexcusable. We apologize to our trans members and to the trans community for this terrible incident and the pain we've caused. We also apologize to the LGBTQIA+ community at large and to our book selling community. Apologies are not enough. We've begun addressing this today and are committed to engaging in a critical dialogue needed to inform concrete steps to address the harm we caused. Those steps will be shared in the next 3 weeks.
This was Abigail Schreier's book, right?
Irreversible damage, yeah, that's what it's called.
Exactly. This is irreversible damage to the book reading community.
Ew. Gosh.
Yeah, this is a book that scientifically documents the harmful effects of trans ideology especially on young girls and kids, and they're calling it violence she's been on so many interviews and grilled over this over and over again, but they really can't argue with the statistics that she cites, and the facts paint a certain picture, and it's obvious that this is a harmful ideology that is really negatively impacting a lot of young girls, and she is compassionately standing up for them. Right. But no, the ideology has to be imposed on us at all costs. And so you have this National Booksellers Association saying it's violence and apologies are not enough. They're saying it's literally insane.
We have to go violently attack her because apologies are not enough.
Mm-hmm. Right. And if we do have a 5-minute video done with Abigail Schreier, if you guys want to check that out, it's called Why Girls Become Boys. So you can go check that out at PragerU.com. Watch 5-minute videos. But do you hear the fear in this statement? The fear that they're pushing out. This is a serious, violent incident. We apologize. Apologies are not enough. We've begun to address this. They're now going to be taking steps and launching a campaign at this company over the next 3 weeks about how to help the trans community when they accidentally put a book in their mailing list.
I don't want to get too into the weeds with stuff that happened with my book, but I had some things that were eerily similar to this happen with my book behind the scenes of some stuff. I'm not going to get into it, but just know that a lot of the publishers and people out there will bend over backwards for the left at the slightest crumple of criticism. At the slightest push that they are against the leftist agenda. So just know that for sure, that the companies that you buy book from, the one who I'm going with, Center Street, is an amazing company with amazing groups of people who published my book, and I have no qualms with any of them. They are fantastic, amazing people. But
yeah,
all these publishers are all left.
And stuff like this should make you concerned. It should make you think about all the books that are published by conservatives or people of dissenting opinions or people that simply just don't agree with the left, that are not being published, that are not being marketed to you, that will never be sold to you because it disagrees with the narrative that they are trying to perpetuate. And this should be a super concerning apology letter to read.
Yeah, all these companies, publishing companies, media companies, Hollywood, big tech, even brands like Nike and NBA leagues, everyone is so eager to virtue signal. Everyone is so eager to say, we're on the side of this prevailing ideology because, God forbid, we be seen as free thinking or, traditional in any sense. We're for this new revolution, and it's these people are trying to impose this new reality, and it's literally everywhere, and to the point. And it's not just that it's here, and right next to it is the other option. It's here, and we're pushing out all the other options and all the other sources of information and all the other books you can read, and the different perspectives are being censored and pushed out, and you're only allowed to think a certain way. Right. And that is dangerous. And that is, I saw the other day this word is like soft or like corporate imposed like totalitarianism or something. It's like the government is not necessarily legislating things that say, oh, you cannot have this, we're going to ban this book. And they're not necessarily doing that yet, but they don't need to, because the companies are doing, publishing companies and media and big tech are doing that for them.
Right. The government really does not have to, it doesn't matter how woke they are, although it does, but in this sense, it does not matter because it is a self-regulating system at this point. If you left everybody to their own defenses right now, the woke left, the extremely loud woke left, would continue to regulate these things, and we've given them far too much power over our society, far too much power over these companies, and these companies are placating to them. That's exactly why we're reading apology letters like this, and there will be no accountability for it, because if they're right, okay, we're on the right side of history. If they're wrong, well, I did it with the good intentions. It was only out of empathy that I canceled your book and that I refused to send it to the people who patronize our business. There is no accountability whatsoever.
I know the whole safe spaces thing is kind of a meme on the right a little bit, that safe spaces, and we talk about it too much, all that. But I am a huge believer in unsafe spaces. We need to have unsafe spaces where people can go and discuss all sorts of ideas, all back and forth, the most offensive, weird things that you can think of that are unimaginable. They should be discussed so that we as humans and humanity can come to the best possible solutions of these different things. But when no one talks about the ideas and you just cancel someone or shut them down for having a difference of opinion, then you don't come to the best possible conclusion. The best possible conclusion or idea doesn't come out on top because it's being censored. So you need to have unsafe spaces where people are allowed to share different types of ideas of all kinds.
Agreed.
And it also makes for you to be a very weak-minded and just generally weak and fragile person, because if you're instructed in here's what to think, and you're not taught how to think, you're not taught how to look at different perspectives and test your own assumptions and beliefs and see if there's a better way of thinking, or does this way that I have been taught actually work in real life. Instead, you're just spoon-fed what you should think, and then you're shielded from every other possible idea. And that is what makes for very weak-minded, fragile people who are, by the way, easily scared and easily fall into the arms of totalitarianism because, this is the approved message. I'm just going to herd with everybody else and be on the safe side where with all the like-minded people and the fellow sheep, and that's America. That is not consistent with America's founding or the spirit of America, which was, I'm going out there. I'm don't need anything promised to me. I don't need protection from the government. I don't need all these things. I'm going to go out on the wild frontier, make a life for myself, figure it out on my own. And instead, now we have this like prepackaged reality and prepackaged ideology that you just, you just be a little cog in the machine. And that's how Chinese people, that's the reality that they have to live in, because they live in an authoritarian society. And ours is slipping that way if we don't wake up.
You should
Manifest Destiny turns into this book is violence.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You should have your views and allow them to be challenged. If your views are correct, they will withstand the challenge and they will become stronger for you. And if they are not correct, they won't withstand the challenge. They'll disintegrate and you can admit that you were wrong. And that's another thing, is that our culture does not want to admit that we're wrong ever.
Yeah, well, I shared yesterday on my Instagram a clip from that Jordan Peterson posted from his podcast, and it was basically, I don't remember the name of the guest, but he was basically like, the purpose of science is to help disprove your assumptions. And so science is useful because it can show you, hey, I believed in this, but by process of the scientific method, testing this over and over again, this belief that I had doesn't work if you actually put it to the test. And so it's not pro-science to say this one thing is true and everyone must follow this and believe it. That is anti-science. Actual science is I'm testing my assumptions. I'm testing what I want, and I want to discover. I have a vested interest in discovering if my assumption is false. I want to know, and I'm assaulting my beliefs as much as possible, and that's what makes for intellectual depth. That's what makes for actually like intelligent people. They've thought through things and they've tested their thoughts and tested their beliefs. And I want to know the best arguments against my positions so that I can make sure that my feet are on firm ground when I have an argument.
Yeah, when you're a young kid and you go in science class, they're like, you're going to make a hypothesis. It's going to be an if-then statement. And you can make 1,000 of these and only one of them ends up being true. But those 999 other times that you were wrong are a learning process for you, and you should learn and grow from them. And this is I'm going to show you our last bit of information, you guys. These are new emojis that are going to be added to your iPhone. And
they were modeled after me when I had my mustache.
So take a look at these. These are pregnant men. Biological men.
I thought that was just Will before he went on his diet.
Yeah.
Well, these are biological women who have been transitioned into men.
That was me when I started bulking.
Oh my God.
It's mass, guys. It's mass. I swear.
It's mass. Don't make me self-conscious.
Well, I'm trying to explain this. These are biological women who are pregnant but have transitioned into being males. And these are going to be new emojis on your phone. If Apple would have their way with it. And again, this is what we just talked about. This is a failed experiment.
It's bold to transition to a man and then adopt the stash. That is quite a bold thing to do.
Stunning and brave.
Stunning. Like
stunning. I don't know.
Like I grow a mustache and everyone calls me ugly and gross. I think it looks sexy, but everyone else calls me ugly and gross. And for them to put the mustache on here is quite a bold thing to do.
I think they needed a distinguishing mark on these emojis to have everybody who looks at them know that these are people that identify as male.
Well, they couldn't give him a penis.
No, they couldn't, because how could you be pregnant with that? And it's funny because they know that, so they couldn't do it.
I mean, what's crazy is like, I'm not even that surprised to see this. And 5 years ago, I think we all would have been like, no way. Could you imagine if they did this? Or
no way.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that, and literally just a couple of years ago. And it's just like we were saying before, these companies are imposing this new view of reality, and it just shows how far it has seeped into our culture, and it has become the prevailing ideology of the day, or at least the dominant ideology of the day. And so I genuinely don't think people like believe, the average person thinks this is absurd, but well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, the more and more people are buying into it, and that's what we talk about, the young people and TikTok stuff. Like, people are being raised now, kids are being raised now with this stuff is normal to them, and this is the world they're growing up in. And I'm like, that's scary.
I showed you a TikTok the other day, and it was a young girl talking about the fact that her mother transitioned to be a man and then raised her alone. And what happened, you saw this progression of this very cute young toddler growing up with a woman who identifies as a man. And as she gets older and as the pictures progress in the TikTok, she turns out to be this 20-something, red-haired, beyond dyed hair activist who's wearing like a Trans Lives Matter t-shirt, or my dad's life matters, when you really know that's her mom. And this sort of influence, when you are given it at a young age, is only going to be detrimental, and they're going to be led in this direction to where this is normal.
I don't use emojis.
Well, yeah.
Emojis
Will
are
has
stupid.
strong opinions. His hot take is that men should not use emojis.
No, men should not use emojis. Emojis are for women and children.
It's a hot take of the day.
I bet intern Tyler uses emojis.
Intern Tyler, do you have anything to say? Do you want to hop in this and answer whether or not you use emojis?
I mean, I don't personally use emojis, but I don't necessarily agree with Will. Do what you want with your emojis. I don't judge with that.
No, men, if you
your
can't...
body, your choice.
No,
your keyboard, your choice.
If you can't adequately express your opinions and feelings through words, that you have to use a little weird picture, there's something wrong with you.
Or men are disadvantaged in expressing themselves emotionally, and
well, then you need to practice.
Is a tool to help.
We can't express ourselves.
Yeah.
Wait, what'd you say, Tyler? You have to.
Men can express themselves.
Society tells men that we can't express ourselves, so we need to use emojis in order to express our emotions digitally.
Are you listening to that, Will? You patriarchal son of a gun.
I can express myself incredibly well through my words and my actions. I don't need a little picture to tell people.
Your opinion is violence against
I will not be on tomorrow's show. I am canceled.
He's canceled. He is fired. And in his
apologies
silence,
are not enough for Will's aggressive violence in his opinions that he's attacking us with.
After the show, we're all going to beat up Will
yes,
for his violent actions. And words.
because he's a man, it'll be okay.
Yes.
If it was
Don't
me,
use
it'd be
emojis,
different.
guys. This is my advice.
Okay, so to all the young men listening, Will tells you not to use emojis.
Yeah. Just
Just don't.
women would prefer that you use words.
That is true. Okay, I'll give you that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you tell us, Amala tells all. Do you want men to use emojis?
I will be honest. I really, when I see them, I'm like, ooh, that's
yeah,
a little.
you're kind of a
It's
beta.
childish. I
Like
wish
you're
you
kind of
would
a beta
just-
male
yeah,
using
use
emojis.
your words.
I know. Like they
Yeah.
send like you want to get food, and instead of food, they send a picture of a taco.
Oh yeah, no.
It's like, just say food. You're acting like a little girl.
I'm okay if you use them every now and then
Yeah.
as a man,
I
but if
think-
you are,
I think it could be like a thing of insecurity where it's like, oh, I couldn't use an emoji because then they might think I'm girly or weak. Like, so I don't have a hard and fast rule. I generally don't use a ton of emojis. It's not like, hey, want to go get pizza? Pizza emoji, pizza emoji, pizza emoji, pizza. Like, I'm not
Right,
doing that,
right.
but I'm not
one.
like afraid to, do the thank you prayer hands or something or whatever. No.
right, it's fine.
My hard and fast rule is that men should not spend more than 15 seconds on a text.
Oh, wrong.
they're-
Okay, I disagree.
That's annoying.
I
If
disagree.
men are thinking, like, if you're talking to a girl, flirting with her, you shouldn't be sitting there for 10 minutes thinking of the best
No.
reply ever. Like, men, that's what men do. You
That
should
is
just.
simpy.
That is simpy. Just
yeah, I
send
agree.
a text without emojis. Just say, "What are you doing?" and meet up.
We're
Go on a date.
Will is spilling all of his secrets of how he spits.
Yeah.
No, I'm
on
saying you don't
texting.
need to sit there for 10
Will's
minutes.
like, you got to keep
No,
them
okay,
wanting more.
I
You want them
agree.
to feel insecure.
But you
No,
can,
I'm not.
you can
No.
spend more than 15 seconds on it. I think that's, if you send me like a thoughtful text message,
No,
I'll
of
be
course
like,
if it's a thoughtful
okay.
text, but I'm saying like guys are like trying to do some like flirty thing with girls, and they're sending like they're sitting there for like
Yeah,
an
like
hour,
thinking about, like,
what am
what's
I-
the most charming?
and it's like, and then you meet them in person, they're like, "Hi."
Yeah.
It's like stop thinking about these wildly elaborate flirty texts and just say, "Let's meet up," and then show her your personality, okay? Like a
just-
man.
Just do like the stream of, I'm a big stream of consciousness texter. I text exactly like I think or exactly like I would speak to somebody. That way when you meet them in person, you're not different than when you were texting them.
Right.
You ever like text somebody and then you meet them in person and you're like, oh, you are not like the person that was texting me. Because
Yes.
they get time to like think and be creative and be funny and like,
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
why you don't take the time. That's why you need to practice sending texts in short amounts of time so that you are ready for the real thing. It's like the Olympics.
that's hilarious.
It's like the Olympics.
Practice.
You have to practice.
You guys like go home today, get your best friend and just practice fake conversations
Yeah,
with them
like as
through
fast
text.
as you can, thinking of the most charming. This is why I'm so witty,
Oh my god.
because I send fast texts.
Pro tips.
Pro tips.
I think
Alright.
we're in the weeds here with this whole like how to text thing. Like if you have to think about how you text, you're already doing it wrong.
Right,
Right,
exactly.
right,
You
exactly.
Stream
should
of
be a
consciousness.
secure, confident person and just have answers when you're asked questions and
Exactly.
know how to start conversations and guide them. And I don't know whether you happen to throw emoji in there or not, whether
Doesn't
you have
matter.
some big strategy about things. I don't think you need all those hard and fast rules. I think you just be you, and that is,
Yes.
Without emojis. My mom is the most. She's probably watching right now. She is the most just boom
I
texter. She just
love
sends like
the way your mom texts
super
you.
direct texts.
I love.
I love
Does
it.
your mom sign her text with her name? I
No,
love
she's not, like, 80 years
parents
old.
She's
do
like
that.
she is a stream of consciousness texter. June, I know you're listening. You're a stream of consciousness.
This stream of
texter.
consciousness framing like freaks me out though, because like stream of consciousness means like literally anything that pops into your mind
Yeah.
you just text, and like I don't know that that's the smartest thing.
No,
Yeah.
but she's like, Will, you are very funny today. You are not normally funny.
Yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
hilarious.
She says
Blunt,
things like
honest.
that.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, she's very honest with me,
Yeah, that's
which
great.
is really sweet of her. Because it helps me be better.
I love it.
And my mom probably doesn't spend 15 seconds on a text. She just
No,
sends it.
she just says
Full
what she
send.
thinks.
Yeah.
You know?
Thanks, Mom.
Good for
I miss
your
reading
mom.
her mom's text. I wish she was okay with
I
us.
know.
I know. Mom, send me some funny texts.
Send
I
him
wanna
a
read 'em.
fake text and then send him your real text so that we can read the
Yeah.
fake ones.
Plan out a long text to send him that we can read on stream.
Yeah, exactly. Send me what you did today.
Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream for the day. We had some major highs. We had some major lows, one of which was the opening of this stream. That was a major low. But please like, subscribe, click the notification bell so you can be notified when we go live. If you want to be personally notified, a system of which You guys love it. We are still working on text live 241776, and you will get a text sent to your phone when we go live every single day. If you are a high school student, college student, or a young professional, and you want to get involved with PragerU or meet some like-minded folks, join PragerFORCE by going to PragerFORCE.com.
Yes, and don't use emojis. Thank you everyone for watching.
Bye.